I am such a Michael Keaton fan. Back in the early days when I was a guy with a microphone, just had gotten off the bus here in LA, I went to the premiere of the original Batman trying to get interviews. And Mr. Nicholson, that was my first introduction with Jack, and Michael and all those guys. And somehow I managed to sneak in the back door and watch that movie, which was transformative. His performance was transformative, the way that he changed everything that night.
Thank you for being here tonight. I'm happy to be here, mostly because I don't get invited to parties or functions, so this is a big deal for me. But this man I'm about to bring on stage, who you know very well, either some of you literally know him or have worked with him, or just like me, great admirers for decades. He's one of my favorite kind of actors, and a lot of it has to do with a sense of humility and selflessness. He shows up, and whether he's starring in a film like Dear God or Flash of Genius, or he's in a three-hander with Nicholson and Helen Hunt, or whether he's literally showing up in like a cameo capacity to make somebody laugh and make Tina Fey look cool because she brought Greg Kinnear into an episode of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. He is always showing up using a great honesty, great specificity. He can do comedy and drama and equanimity. And his humility and his sense of groundedness is something, as I've gotten to know him, makes him all the more attractive of a human being outside of his great talent that we're all aware of. Before I annoy him more by paying him compliments and trying to think of fancy words, I'll just bring him out. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Kinnear. Give it up.
Thank you, Paul. All right, thank you. The worst traffic I've ever been through coming here, so thank you for coming to this event.
Thank you for coming.
I'm too young for anything with the word retrospective in it, and I should be sitting here asking Paul Walter Hauser questions about how he kicked ass so well in Blackbird. Let's just turn the tables right now. So tell me about your first movie experience.
I got cut out of the first Transformers. Dude, it's, I know you were like, hey, thanks for doing me a solid and interviewing me for this thing. But like, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I think, I was born in 1986. So for me, the first time I really noticed you and saw you in something was as good as it gets. And You've Got Mail within like the same year those kind of came out.
Yeah.
And for me as a young man watching TV and film, when you're really little, it's just about being entertained. So a lot of my early heroes are guys like Jim Varney and Chris Farley, where they're brilliant, but a lot of it is just, loud and crazy. And what you did so well for me as someone who around that time was discovering, hey, I think I might want to take this seriously and make a career out of this, is it's very lived in what you do. And before we get into all of the IMDb of it all, I just want to kind of rewind and because sometimes to understand somebody's effect and what they do in this field, it does help to go back to where they came from. And as I understand it, you seemingly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you seemingly come from a pretty straight-laced group of Scottish-Irish people who were traveling for the government. Tell me about your dad and what he did for a living.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Indiana, a very small town, a couple hours north of Indianapolis. I lived there till I was about 9, and my dad took a job in D.C. Around that time. We were in D.C. for about three years. I was living in Reston, Virginia. Don't know if we have any Virginianites here, but oh yeah.
Anybody? Fredericksburg? Anything?
Yeah. Herndon. At any rate, I was there, and he ended up getting he was working with the State Department. He ended up getting a job, a diplomatic assignment to Beirut, Lebanon.
Ooh.
And so we went to, wow. Beirut. We get a bigger applause for Beirut than we do for Virginia. It's fantastic. Beirut is a beautiful country, an amazing place. We showed up in 1975 to a glorious place that was with wonderful people. You know, look, I was 12, displaced from Indiana 3 years before, so I'm not going to overstate this. Like, I was like, this is fascinating, but I was aware that the world had changed drastically for me immediately, and I knew it was an incredible opportunity, and I knew I was in a place that was extraordinary. And unfortunately, the Civil War timing has never been my thing or my family's thing. The Civil War started shortly after we got there. And probably less than a year later, we got evacuated to Athens, Greece. And they had us leave one morning at about 4 a.m. My mom woke me up. We were loaded up on these, me and my brother, with my mom on buses, and kind of went out past the PLO camps, 3 TWA planes waiting for the Americans to get the hell out of there. And my dad stayed behind to help close the embassy. So he came later, but we had that was the plan, to get out of Beirut. And the first place we landed was Athens, Greece, and we stayed there for a week. It turned into 2 weeks, turned into a month. Suddenly, Mom and Dad said, "Hey, we're gonna move to the American embassy here," and we ended up in Athens for the next 6 years.
Wow.
So
from 12 to 18?
Yes, I went from 12 to 18. I was at a place called American Community School, ACS Athens. Had some, without going too far down, I had some amazing inspirations there, I guess, for, there was a drama teacher, Miss Panopoulos, who was, somebody I met when I was a kid, and she had us do these little things, and I was like, hey, I like this. I felt some connection to something finally. And
oh, interesting.
But and then another, Miss Gibbs was another drama teacher later in high school, and it was just kind of those early experiences. I mean, everybody has that moment where they start to, I think actors have that moment where they're kind of like, I feel like I'm an actor. I have some quality that allows me to do this. And it feels good when I do it successfully, and it doesn't feel good when I don't do it successfully. But that was that happened early on, and I was very lucky to have that whole high school experience over there and have some very dear friends that I made there, including some that are actually here. Yes.
Is someone here tonight? Who is this?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's Dave. Oh my God, you got the mask on.
Dave.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We're
your radio show that you had there.
Oh, okay. Apparently, I got 2 people giving the interview now.
I like how we all clapped for him. He could have been his bully or something. We don't know what the
Exactly.
relationship is yet. We haven't established this.
I also had it's true, there was a little Air Force base there, and they had a little small radio station, and if you happened to be there in the 70s and you heard School Days with Greg Kinnear, that was my early stuff, spinning vinyl, Paul.
I did the same in college.
Did you really?
I was in college for like 40 minutes, but when I had a radio show in Oak Park River Forest, Illinois, and it was just me and my buddy trying to, I don't know why that got an applause, but thank you.
Yeah.
Some fans of my college radio show,
They
clearly.
love locations in this room.
No, but I guess that's what I'm curious about is you said, and whether you meant to or not, there was a little bit of a pointed, passionate turn there when you said, I finally had something to like latch onto. Because you were this sort of, governmental brat or whatever they would call it, moving about from city to city and sometimes with the hostility of, a war going on or something or an attack. Were you looking for something at that time? Did you have anything? Were you collecting coins? Were you reading history books? Were you watching sports? Like, did you have any sort of anchor of self, if I could call it something?
No. Not a great self-anchor. Other than listen, I had a very good family. I was very lucky.
One of three, right?
Yeah, one of three, and my mom and dad were married 66 years. My father passed away last year.
Can we clap for 66 years of marriage?
I agree.
Good God. That's incredible.
But they were I felt very, loved and supported. I didn't have I don't think I had a real game plan. I really didn't have, I remember I did a talk show years ago for NBC and took over for Bob Costas, and Bob used to keep this baseball card in his wallet, like a Mickey Mantle baseball card, and he'd tell you the story about the fact that he had that card his whole life, and he knew when he was that little kid that he was going to be a sports broadcaster, and I was like, God, that's amazing. I definitely didn't have that. I had a couple of, confluences of maybe some interest in entertainment, did this radio show. I knew there was something there, but I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go do this, because it just didn't seem practical to me. I mean, I watched, even in Greece, we had like 3 television shows. There was Dallas and The Muppets and Dynasty. And I remember watching Dynasty and thinking, these can't be real people, right? How does this, it just seems, the myth of it just seems so far. I'd never been to California, never been out here, and just, and I think that has changed for actors, for young actors in particular, is that the world's gotten smaller, and subsequently, I don't think it's as far a reach for them anymore. But if you're from where I was living, displaced from Beirut, living in Greece, it seems a little bit far away.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think a lot of that has to do with the digital, social media landscape, obviously, where you might tweet at somebody and then they hit you back, and it's like, well, if I can do that, I can, But,
yeah, right.
But I think, one of the things we're talking about tonight, pertaining to Greg, is having staying power and enduring and having you earn a career retrospective. It's not like anybody who has a couple of good strokes ends up on this or stages like it. What I would ask you is, what, doing, I assume theater, was it improv, radio? Like, you had a few things you did.
Yeah. I think everything you just mentioned, in my earlier life.
That was the makeup. And then what sends you to the University of Arizona, Tucson?
My brothers had gone there. I wasn't a good student, and I felt like
Same,
I
by
felt
the way.
like, hey,
Same.
it seems warm and sunny out there, and I just kind of thought I'll go there and because I did feel sort of a obligation. My parents thought I should go to college, and I guess I kind of thought I should go to college, and so it wasn't a well thought out plan. But I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson, and I went there with the idea of getting a bachelor's degree. I got there, and I did start as a drama major, and I thought, well, I couldn't believe they had a drama major, so I thought, well, that makes sense, and I basically started with some acting classes there, and had some very good professors. There was one hard-ass guy, I can't even remember his name, and he came out literally early in the process, and he said, less than 2% of you are ever gonna make a living becoming actors. He was literally smoking in class to tell us that. And I was like, wow, that sounds terrifying. I ended up, feeling like that maybe I should, call an audible. And I switched to, they had a broadcast journalism department. It sounded better. I thought I had,
A little more collegiate.
It's a collegiate. I liked the looks of Peter Jennings on television in the evening news and Tom Brokaw, some of those guys.
You do a great Ted Koppel, right?
I do an okay Ted. Nobody knows Ted Koppel anymore. You can't do
This
Ted
crowd does.
Koppel.
You guys look ancient.
No.
This isn't that young of a crowd.
Tom Brokaw was also.
Yep. Ted Koppel had.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ted Koppel. This is Nightline
Come on.
tonight, and forgive me for sounding overzealous on this one particular point. Paul Walter Hauser shits the bed with Greg Kinnear.
I love it.
We should wrap this up, right? That's
do,
what I'm getting from the vet.
Just don't let me do my Rush Limbaugh. Things will get very awkward.
I think we want to see that.
It was recently reported that Michelle Obama was seen eating a meatball sub on a yacht. I don't know. That's
Well,
all I
we're
got.
just going to do this all night, folks.
You could though, like you are one of those guys that can do impressions though. Not everybody does impressions or impersonations. Did that start in your youth too? Because I used to like impersonate my pastors, my teachers, authority figures. It was kind of a way to let off steam with your friends, where it's like, let's poke fun at them and we all have our impression. Did you do any of that?
I did, and I always liked it. With radio, I guess, maybe you'd hear those guys, 97.1 The Wave, and I'd be like, wow, so cool.
Yeah.
And then the first job I ever got fired from, I was waiting tables, early start, waiting tables in Arizona, and the manager, I did an impersonation of the manager. And this is not a good plan, by the way. So I'd kind of do this guy, and all the waiters thought it was so funny, and they were all like, Greg, do the impersonation for the guy.
Worst.
And I did it for him, and I was fired the next day. So I was like, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Some hard knocks early on. By the way, there's something interesting to note is like this idea of an educator telling you that less than 2%, and then you switching majors. I mean,
Yeah,
That's-
I think it's called cowardice.
probably on his
No,
part.
I think there was like
because
a-
he didn't make it, is my guess.
Well,
He's-
I mean, there was a practicality of it. I did feel like
Yeah.
I didn't have as many people don't, and actors don't. There's no safety net for this, and so I guess I felt like, and I have such admiration for people who have those incredible stories where, against all odds, they did it. Now, usually it's tied to something else. They were driving a cab for a while. They were waiting tables. They were doing this. There always are some through lines into it, but stand-up, I think, right?
stand-up comedy, yeah.
Paint. Wasn't there paint also? You were
Yeah, I
painting?
used to do a body paint thing. I told you that in private. I don't know why you're bringing it up. Sorry.
Hey, listen, we're going to take a commercial break. And
We're gonna next up Ted Koppel. Sorry, I can't get over your Ted Koppel. It's perfect. That's like Dana Carvey good. You did wait some tables. You did have some jobs, but there really was a pretty smooth transition. You end up moving to Los Angeles
Yeah.
with the degree under your belt. So
Yep.
if you got to go sell weather in Poughkeepsie, you can do it.
Yes.
But you're in Los Angeles, and there's kind of an interesting transition between this broadcasting reporter journalist thing and the early roles you get. As I've been told or done some research, it seems like you played a reporter in a TV movie and an episode of LA Law.
That's right.
And then you're doing your first film, Blank Man, with Damon Wayans, was also, you were playing a TV reporter, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's did
No,
they
my
just
suit's
see you and they're like, you look like a guy that holds a microphone?
No, I was a guy who held a microphone.
Yeah.
That was like my first. I came out. I briefly. I couldn't get a job. I had a few friends out here, and I, finally I was like, well, I got to go do something, and I ended up in Northern California selling light bulbs and PVC, as you do, for a while. That didn't pan out. I came back through Los Angeles and ended up getting a job at a friend of a friend was leaving someone's desk at this low-budget film company called Empire Pictures. And there was a guy named Charlie Band. And I said, well, yeah, I'll do it. And I worked there for about 6 months. And it wasn't like a great job, but it was giving me an actual paycheck, which I couldn't believe. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. Met some very interesting people. Jean-Claude Van Damme walking through the hallway. I mean, it was like Daniel Day-Lewis for Empire. I mean, it was crazy. And
I thought we were doing a standing O for JCVD. I guess not. Okay, sorry.
So I did that, and I ended up through another friend of mine who's here was dating Justine Bateman. And,
as one does.
As one does. And Bobby, where are you? Are you out here?
Hey, Bobby.
Right
hey.
here. He's dating Justine Bateman, and she and him were like, hey, we just came back from Fort Lauderdale MTV, and we were thinking you should try out for MTV.
Oh, a VJ role.
Yeah. So they gave me a number, and they said call this guy, and I went and did that, and I didn't get hired, but I got a audition tape out of it. It said MTV audition, and there was another cable channel starting up here in LA, and I ended up getting a hosting job doing that. So that was really 3 years just like this in front of a camera, filling time with behind the scenes interviews. We would play trailers and movies, and it was like, I mean, you see people do this now on YouTube, right? And it was just me getting acquainted to the familiarity of a camera, and it was a fairly simple operation, but I did that for 3 years, and then everybody got fired once again. That was my story. I got fired, and then I went back shortly thereafter to start a show called Talk Soup at E. So that was, I don't know if that deserves an applause, but I did it. So I did that for 3 years. So I'd had this kind of hosting thing. So I had an agent. They weren't an acting. I didn't have a theater agent, and I would get occasional calls through somebody saying, "Hey, do you want to go do this role?" And they would find me, obviously through my agent, as somebody who kind of did that, and I would go in, and they were sort of me with a microphone type roles. But at least I was on a set, and I was like, well, this is getting incrementally closer to something.
Yeah. These are all inroads. It's this idea of you join this production company. Yeah, maybe they're not making everything you love watching or something, but it's an inroad.
Right.
And then that ends in a new beginning and a new beginning. And of course, you're building that resume. You're obviously getting recognized from Talk Soup. And that was, that's kind of a position that has been a launching pad for other performers, comedic and specific. And you really were the first one. And that was sort of the era where people like Jon Stewart and Adam Sandler were doing VJ work on MTV. Right. And you guys kind of came up and is almost like an unofficial class of folks who did quite well for themselves starting in those types of projects. But obviously the goal was always acting, yes?
Yes. Goal was, I think it was the goal. And I ultimately, while I was doing Talk Soup, I got a bite from Sidney Pollack expressed some interest. So that was a giant turn, though. It wasn't like I was laying the bait for that. It was kind of out of nowhere.
But that was going to be my next question. Of course, the late Sidney Pollack, one of the greats, on screen and behind the camera. He asks you to audition to play Harrison Ford's brother in a studio film, a remake of a Billy Wilder movie. Going from Talk Soup to number 3 on the call sheet. That movie, I just rewatched it because I knew I was doing this. It really kind of plays like a 3-hander.
Yeah.
It is kind of this screwball-y thing where we're jumping around between the triangle. And how does that happen? He just saw you on Talk Soup and was a fan?
Lindsay Duran, who used to work with him, saw me, and I think Sidney couldn't believe that somebody was from a smaller town in Indiana than he was. And so that was kind of the initial hello. And then, I just went to his office and we talked. And he said, hey, just read this with me. And he handed me a piece of paper. And I said, okay, well, who's going to be Sabrina? And he goes, me. And I was like, okay.
Taking this Tootsie thing pretty far, Sid. But go ahead.
Yeah. And he was, and we, just kind of read through it, talked through it. I remember him saying to me, and I think this is a fantastic piece of little bit of a chum for future actors. He goes, just promise me one thing, you won't act. And I go, okay. He didn't want to see that was his hope. So we read through it, and then he said, okay, thanks, that was fun. And I kind of thought that was the end of it. And it really was like a month later that I got a call that he wanted me to see me again and put me on tape with somebody. And then that got a little more serious.
Yeah. Did you end up doing a chem read with Harrison or?
Never did. I met Harrison literally in New York at. We met in a kind of a production meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and same for Julia. I didn't meet her either. So Sydney made the call, and I got the the word literally on a few weeks before I went out there.
You really got thrown into the deep end. I mean, that's crazy. That's really impressive. It's also impressive rewatching the film and going, you would never know this is his technically his second film maybe, but really your first movie. I mean, you would never know that, dude.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm not sure if you're right.
Well, one of my, you have this really, there's a moment after
I think I've gotten better.
You have.
No, but I listen, that movie, people really do love that film, and some people hate it, but it's a real mix. It certainly wasn't a hit. I mean, I remember watching it in a screening room with my wife, my beautiful wife Helen, who's right here, and we watched the movie together, and then I said, okay. The lights came up, and then there was nobody there, and so we walked around Paramount. And she goes, so I just literally walked in complete silence for 10 or 15 minutes, and you didn't say a word, I didn't say a word. We were just in complete shock. And finally, I think, she said, well, what do you think? And I go, yeah, it's a movie and I'm in it.
That's kind of...
there's a giant screen, all of that, and then all of a sudden, out of the bushes, Sidney Pollack, Greg, get in my office! And he wanted me, obviously to come back and talk about it and stuff, which we did, but I didn't, for some reason, I misconnected with him. I think they let me go, and he was, wanting to have a conversation about it, which we did. My general sense was, I think I was in shock, but I felt like it was, I really liked the film. I thought everybody was great in it. It was just so surreal, and still is. That particular film, watching me in it, is very, very odd.
Well, very good. There's a moment where you wake up after a night of sitting on 2 champagne glasses or something, and you have one of the most convincing wake-up scenes I've ever seen an actor do, where you actually look like they woke you up. And it's one of those weird things. We all have this when we watch TV and film, where there are things that kind of annoy us. And one of my annoying things is I hate when somebody wakes up in a scene and that they weren't sleeping, they don't look like
it's so funny. We never have talked about this. I'm exactly the same way. I mean, I pride myself on a good wake up.
Those little,
and I've done it a few times.
Yeah, it's fun.
I got a great wake up in the Matador, by the way, with Pierce. Great wake up in the Matador with Pierce.
Yeah, come on.
One of my best wake ups. If there were nominees for wake ups, I feel like I'd be all over the place.
So wake up and nominate him for best.
He's a natural.
There's a film I seem to remember that came after that, that you starred in. Once again, you're going from Talk Soup to playing Harrison Ford's brother to starring in a studio picture directed by Gary Marshall. Of course, I'm talking about the movie Dear God.
Yeah.
And that, you know, while being once again not a hit movie in any regard, you hold your own for a 90-minute film, and you get to work with a young Laurie Metcalf, and you get to work with Tim Conway. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and
Gary
Jack
Marsh?
Klugman.
Yeah, Klugman.
Yeah. Gary brought all the buddies in there, and it was great. I mean, Gary was iconic, and for a reason. I mean, just great spirit about the man. I think we've all seen him interviewed, or maybe you've met him. Just a very personable, wonderful, joyous guy. And I felt very lucky to get to work with him in that movie. And listen, he was dealing with a nervous wreck of a guy. I was like, I didn't feel like we had I just didn't feel like we had a script there that was quite ready. And I didn't know enough at the time. I just was like, well, we'll figure this out. People, you figure it out, right? I mean, the thing, if a page or this 2-page scene doesn't work, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. Fix it in post. And obviously, that was a real lesson, because there were fundamental problems with that, with the script of it, and we had some great people in it. And their movie has its charms, but it was a lesson to me early on about how valuable the writing obviously is.
Sure.
And as a guy who hadn't really come from that world, it was new for me.
And
as obvious as it is.
Nothing is it's not a perfect science. You can have an award-winning writer and still end up in a clunker. It's tricky. I'm sure that, and that leads to an interesting question. We're going to talk about some more of these films, obviously, but is there a film that oh no, wait, we've talked about this. No, I'm gonna wait.
God.
I don't want to spoil it.
What?
We're
not going to spoil it.
We're not going to talk about Little Miss Sunshine yet, but I know,
Okay.
not yet. Don't even clap. No, the next film in your filmography that we should chat about is one of my all-time favorites. I'm sure the current generation would watch Jack's performance and just have to go see their therapist or something. But brilliant writing from James L. Brooks. Yeah. Brilliant performances from Jack and Helen, but especially you. Once again, this is maybe your 4th, 5th film ever at the time, and you get nominated for Best Supporting Actor for As Good as It Gets.
Yeah.
Before I get into it, I want to share a note with you from a buddy of yours who you worked with. This is from Helen Hunt.
Oh.
Helen said, "I don't remember when Greg and I first met, but I do remember an overwhelming sense that he and I had been dropped, like first-year witches and wizards at Hogwarts, into an unfamiliar and wild new world. We found ourselves working with our heroes, and thank God we could look at each other once in a while for some kind of silent recognition that this wild and wonderful miracle was occurring.
Right.
Every good actor in the world auditioned for Greg's part in As Good as It Gets. Jim auditioned giant movie stars, world-class Broadway actors, and even non-actors, because he knew that if he didn't find just the right person for this role, there was no movie. It was not only about qualities that Greg possessed as a person that were right for the part, it was about an actor with enough talent to both be overwhelmed by Jack and to grow past that overwhelm because of the events his character survived. Greg got all of that. He got the humor and pathos and self-indulgence and whatever the opposite of self-indulgence is, and he poured it into the part, and because he did it so beautifully, the movie was a giant success. I was lucky to be in the movie with him and to know him as we age and age and age. Congratulations. Congratulations, friend. Helena.
Wow.
Tell me about your relationship with her.
Jack used to say, Helen Hunts. Helen Hunts.
Another impression you do in the film, right?
Yeah,
That's in the film.
I do, we do. Jack, Yeah, no, I was like, what? No, first of all, that's so incredibly warm and kind of Helen, who, God, I adored. She's acting like she's in my boat with that quote. It's the only problem I'm going to push back on, because I was like, there's Jack and there's Jim and there's Helen Hunt. I mean, she had an incredible trove of work that she had done when we did that movie. So I know it was a big break for her as for a film, but obviously Mad About You was,
Twister, she was having a huge moment.
It was all that. So I think everything she said is ditto. And I can't say it nearly as well as Helen. That's the magic of our relationship. She's articulate, I'm not. And but I will say that I adored her, and I felt like incredibly thrilled and lucky to have. I mean, you talk about that script. I don't think we all know, right? I don't think anybody's making that movie, unfortunately, anymore today. Yeah. And it's a tragedy. And listen, I don't say that easily or lightly. It's a hell of a risk. And it was a big risk when they made the movie, and a lot of other things could have happened with it. But it's one of my favorites, and I think it really captured some sort of magic, and it captured, in Jack Nicholson, one of his great, God, he's done so much great stuff, but one of his great performances. And to have a front row seat being, taunted by him, in and day in and day out was really, thank you, was really, it was a joy, it was a privilege. So that movie was a privilege.
What was the audition process like for that? Because that's, once again, as Helen clearly dictated, every dude in town was reading for that.
I was doing I think it was Dear God, and Jim came and visited me because I was shooting. He came with Francine Maisler, who's casting the movie, and we all kind of hung out, and I think we got dinner or something, and at some point I think there was a video camera involved, and
sounds like you were drugged or something. What happened?
I ended
there was
up
a dinner,
across the border.
I woke up and I had the party.
Beaten. No, I actually was. There was we went to dinner and then we came back, and I think there was a video camera, and I think they recorded me with Francine, just playing Jack, and it was kind of like started like that. I never. Oh no, that's not true. So yes, that was the first one, and then I got he went away. Jim went away forever. He's never hiring me for that movie ever. And then he calls back, and he is interested in me, and he says, "I want you to come up to Jack's house, and read with him." Mm-hmm. And you can just feel your insides leaving your body when that call comes in. I mean, it's both exciting and thrilling, but it's, oh my God, I'm not going up to that shiny house on the hill and trying to sit opposite Jack. At any rate, I did go up there, and I got up there, and I've said before, Jack was very welcoming, and we had a little dinner. And do you like spaghetti and meatballs? Yeah, I do. We had a little bite to eat, and before you know it, Jim was we're all talking, and then and then I think we kind of read through some scenes together. Yeah. Then I got fired again. There was definitely not going to be me. I knew it wasn't going to be me, and I think Kelsey Grammer was driving in as I was driving out or something, and I was like. And look, it just I don't know. I don't remember the timeline for any of it, but I was doing it was when I was also doing a talk show at NBC. So I had become an actor who was also doing talk shows, which now people do, but at that time it was
very unheard of,
so crazy.
Yeah.
And I was literally walking out the door of my green room to go interview John LaRoquette. And the phone rang,
as one does,
and it was Jim saying, "Hey, listen, I want you to play Simon in this movie." And all I remember, like with John LaRoquette, is I'm just sitting there. You can watch the tape. I'm just like, So tell me about what you're working on. And I, completely not conscious through any of it.
Wow. Can you give any advice to young, or well, actors of any age, because we're all still doing it? Can you give some advice on how to hold your own opposite a screen icon? Because that can be very overwhelming, even for the most talented person.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know. I don't really know that I can give anybody advice on that.
What was it like for
I
you?
guess I don't know. I feel I didn't, as impressive as any big actors are that I've worked with, and of course you get nervous, and of course there is a little bit of that. I had and maybe it was the earlier experience with the TV stuff. I just felt like there was a gear I could slip into to suddenly get through that and not and get rid of the mythology. I felt that with Harrison. I felt it with Jack. And I don't know what I would have done otherwise. There was no other game, because if I have such extraordinary respect for them and so many other great actors that I've worked with. Hanks. It's like I feel like it's part of the job to disengage your admiration and your respect for the incredible work they've done and try to do this as best you can.
Yeah, imposter syndrome can be a real pain in the ass in those circumstances. My first film,
What does that mean?
Imposter, you're familiar with imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah, but what did you mean when you said it?
It can be... Imposter syndrome is this... imposter syndrome is this emotional fever that comes across your mind and body, in which you show up and you are surrounded by elements, be it famous actors or people you admire, even the crew or the budget, and you're looking around and you kind of feel like I'm an imposter, like they're gonna find me out. They're gonna. I feel it. I would say every other job I have a moment where I'm like.
I'm older than you. We call that fraudulent, and same thing.
Well, yeah, I think it's good for actors to know you do have to create that gear.
For sure.
You have to find that gear.
For sure.
You had to find the gear for your next film, which hosts a bunch of legends: Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Dave Chappelle, and one of my favorites, Parker Posey.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm talking about You've Got Mail, one of the greatest rom-coms.
Maureen Stapleton.
Maureen Stapleton, Steve Zahn, who I love.
So many great people in that.
A bunch of people. What a fun movie to be a part of. I'll never forget that scene where you're on the piano and you guys are singing that, the violin sing with joyful. Once again, showing the charm, showing the comedy, and holding your own with those stars. What was your experience like making that?
I was in New York, and my agent said, "Would you like to meet with Nora Ephron?" And I said, "Anywhere, anytime." And I went, and he said, "Well, she's going to have breakfast at Eat tomorrow up in the upper east or west, east side, right?" Went up there and had a little bite with her, and I just adored her. We've all heard what a lovely person she is, and getting to work with her was just such a thrill. She's really has that skill of creating, setting the table, of creating this environment. I think for actors a warmth. It's like a host, or a hostess in her case, just taking everybody in her arms and making us all feel like we're part of something. And she just had that glow about her, and it never felt like it didn't feel like work. She was serious, and there were important moments, but everything was fun and just great. I remember about making that, and I felt like it really translates in the movie.
Another film like As Good as It Gets that has that staying power too, kind of an evergreen film. I think a lot of people, my kids are going to watch that someday.
Yeah.
Nurse Betty.
Yeah.
I saw this for the first time. I had never seen it, but I watched it in anticipation of this night. And what a cool dark comedy. What a cool weird movie. I really enjoyed it. And once again, speaking of these ensembles, it's like Crispin Glover, Morgan Freeman, yourself, my buddy Ali Janney, Chris
Yeah.
Rock and Renee Zellweger, who you'd go on to work with again
Yeah.
on Same Kind of Wonderful as Me. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a great script. I love the script for it. It's the little dark comedy, as you say, one of my favorite movies that I've done, and Chris is fantastic in it.
Chris is scary.
Chris is scary. Plays Aaron Eckhart
That
is
scene,
in there.
spoiler alert, you had 2 decades to watch it, but
Yeah.
there's a scene where Chris Rock
You've had 20 years, guys.
Chris Rock is like trying to scalp Aaron Eckhart. It was so violent.
No, he's not trying. Actually,
He achieves such
he
a-
achieves scalpage, and it's very dark and horrific in places, but also incredibly funny. And Renee
Surprisingly touching.
Renee, I think, won the Golden Globe for it.
Oh, for best actress in a comedy musical. Deserved.
I did not, but
Well, I love your scene where you're flipping out on her on the set while Janny's breathing down your neck.
Yeah.
And it was
Allison
such
is I'm in a
fun
soap
moment.
opera, and she basically thinks she's had this delusional experience. Renee Zellweger's had this delusional, kind of traumatic experience, and she suddenly thinks that she's in love with this soap star named David Ravel. And so Allison is the producer of the show. There is a legitimate show in Los Angeles, Days of Our Nights or something on TV, and somehow Renee finds her way out to Hollywood and meets me, and there's a bit of a romance. But meanwhile, she's being pursued by Chris and Morgan, who are trying to get back some money that she has inadvertently in her car. So that's basically the pitch for the movie. Again, don't let another 20 years pass you by, folks.
Don't do it. What I like about the film, it's almost like a female version of Being There.
Yeah.
Where Renee is, of course, the Peter Sellers, who's kind of stumbling, but people think it's a dance move, if you will.
Yeah.
There's a really fun, screwy, comedic sensibility, and
It's
you have
incredible
a great
performance.
line too, where you say to her, you're looking at her and you go, "Your dedication scares me."
Yeah.
And it's just, oh man, you and her are really fun to watch together.
Well, it was Neil LaBute, and I will say this: the way that movies go, that this is the only time this ever happened, and this is probably going to get me canceled or no jobs from any directors for saying this, but I will share this. There was a scene towards the end of shooting, and we'd been shooting, and people are tired, and it's very late, and Renee has now, at the end, spoiler alert, is now in the soap opera. And so she's wearing a little nurse's outfit with a little headpiece, and her name is Cherry. And I'm David Ravel. And we're doing the scene back and forth, and the lines are just fabulous. It's just soapy, dripping soapy dialogue. And we can't get through it. And we just bust, and we go back and forth, and we try like hell. The night ends with me doing my side of the scene against a C-stand with a tennis ball on it. And the same for her. It was the only way to finish the scene. And by the way, at that hour, the crew kind of laughs at first, and then by that point, they're like,
I gotta go to my kid's t-ball game at 10 a.m. You asshole.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was awful. And it was the only. I mean, I consider myself a professional, and I could never get back out of that.
Well, and
Still tortures me. I get sweaty talking about it.
Once you get started, it's hard to come down.
Yeah.
It's really like a.
Have you had that?
Oh, of course. I'm better now.
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm better. Listen, I'm better at it now. If you and I do our third project in a couple years, we break character, it'll only happen to me once or twice. But like back in the day, I did an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I was working with Charlie Day for 4 days.
Oh yeah.
And that guy gets in his squeaky, high-pitched voice, and he's like, "All right, here's what we're gonna do." And he
That's where you got the high-pitched voice for Blackbird.
Yes, that is what
Okay,
Charlie
I
Day.
see.
I'm doing an impression of Charlie Day. No, but like he looks like a little Muppet doing the stuff he does sometimes. And and once you get going, it's like, dude, it's hard to come down from the giggles.
It's
a tough one. Speaking of the giggles, you did both the Larry Sanders Show and the Mike Nichols film.
Yes.
What Planet Are You From?
Right.
With
Gary.
a legend who left us way too soon in Gary Shandling.
Yeah.
Tell us about your relationship with him.
I love.
Yeah, definitely. Come on.
I love Gary. He lived down the street from me. He played at he had this very famous basketball game I played in for a bit, and he was
The famous basketball game.
famous basketball game where you just see it was kind of a who's who, and eventually I had young kids, and I kept seeing people getting carted off with knee injuries, so I kind of like backed out of that. But he was a really wonderful guy, obviously a great artist. Larry Sanders is, for me, one of the great television shows ever made. And he called me and he said, listen, if you want to do the last episode, I have a little part for you. And I was like, oh my God, absolutely. And I went over to where I think they did it at CBS or somewhere, but I went over and we I don't remember exact. I mean, it's in the show. It's just like some goof, but I'm backstage and I'm me, and I'm standing there with Tom Petty and Clint Black, and it gets into an altercation with Tom Petty going, "What are you gonna say about that suit, boy?" And what are you talking about? You know, we get in a little thing, and it was listen, if you can in your career end up in a fist fight with Tom Petty, you've done something right.
I mean, yeah. One of those fun moments, I'm sure, for you as a young man going, tell your high school or college self that you're in a fist fight with Tom Petty and you're working with, Gary Shandling. That's fun.
Yeah. But he's a remarkable guy, and he did a movie with Mike Nichols, who I knew personally a little bit, and it was not a successful film, but incredible to watch. Gary and Mike together. They're two icons. Kind of, and Annette Bening, by the way,
amazing
as well.
cast. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ben Kingsley, Sir Ben, who I worked with again later. But it was a great cast, great group of people, and obviously Gary is, as you said, very well put. Way too young.
Yeah. And seemed to be a pretty wise person too. He kind of had some layers. Incredible guy.
Yeah.
Then you go on to pivot to another icon in Paul Schrader, starring in the film Autofocus opposite Willem Dafoe, which I saw that a year or two ago. I think I saw it right. I had never seen it, and I saw it right before I worked with you on Blackbird. So I was like, oh, how have I missed this? And I watched it, and I was like, man, this is a really dark film, and Greg is like, it's cool to see him in something like that, because you have played a lot of these kind of sort of safe but struggling milquetoast American dudes, and this is like such an interesting, dark, true Hollywood story about a guy who goes from Hogan's Heroes to living this life of like
sexual addiction.
Yeah. What was that like for you? How did that come across your proverbial desk?
Michael Gerbosi wrote it. Scott, Larry Kozinski and Scott Alexander actually produced it, and they basically had seen me in a little piece in the like a write-up in the LA Times or something. And they literally had come across the script from Michael Gerbosi because they had ordered Jerry's Deli, and Michael was the Jerry's Deli delivery guy, and gave them the food and said, "Hey, can I leave you a script too?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure." And that was Autofocus, and they kind of took to it. And then they, I guess, serendipity, I was in this thing, and they kind of looking, Bob Crane, Greg Kinnear, yeah. So that was kind of their funny story about my early connection with it. Yeah. Schrader obviously came onto the movie, and he was incredible. I mean, Paul Schrader, you talk about a career. Such a incredible artist, I think, and was so prepared. Had so much information on on Bob. And look, it is a very dark story, and he was completely the right guy to tell that story. And he had a history with Willem Dafoe, so the idea of me getting to work with Willem was, that I think there was no question it was going to be Willem. So that was a huge thrill for me because I love everything Willem's done. So he was I was Big Daddy, and he was my buddy, and we went to town. It has a lot of sex in it, and it is a story about sexual addiction. Bob Crane came out and was doing Hogan's Heroes, and kind of it was probably, I guess it was before, it was just right at the birth of video archiving things, and he started to capture pictures and video of some of his encounters, and by the way, all of that is recorded in great volume, but Paul had everything. So, you couldn't research this enough in terms of what was there. Now, after a while, you kind of get the idea. So, I definitely took it. I think what I loved about it was I felt like the script was both comedic and both dark. There were moments in that that I thought were really funny, and I don't think, I'm not sure, I would see a lot of like really, really funny beats in it, and Paul was actually very focused on, the heavy drama of it, and it does have a weird alchemy, there's kind of both playing at the same time in that movie.
Well, and that's kind of a Coen-esque element, to be honest. You rewatch Barton Fink, and it is equal parts dark and harrowing and strange, and you feel this sense of discomfort and dis-ease, but it's also hysterical. I'm laughing out loud every 18, 20 minutes or so.
For sure.
Yeah, autofocus.
And I mean, like when you
that.
show, we literally had a swimming pool scene where I show up, and there's, we had a swingers party scene where literally it's basically, imagine this room and no one has any clothes on, and they're all
You were already thinking it. Don't act shocked.
But everybody showed up, and they're he's gotten these are real swingers, and not exactly lookers, by the way, the swingers, as it turns out. But and then you had they also had a pool. We had a pool party where they had to, I've said too much. Let's move on to the next.
Listen, it sounds like the lawsuit HBO almost had with Westworld. It sounds very similar. In a span of about 11 or 12 years, from I believe it was 95 to about 2006, 2007, you work with Paul Schrader,
yes,
the Farrelly brothers, Richard Linklater twice, James L. Brooks, Gary Marshall, Sidney Pollack, Amy Heckerling, and Nora Ephron. Please. In the midst of that, mind you, we're talking a decade or more. Do you have any sort of emotional mental cognizance that says, wow, I'm working with all these great directors. Also, all these great directors want me. Is there any sort of settling or comfort in that? Or is it really just the breakneck pace of an actor who's always seeking the next role and kind of staying humble, knowing that there is no job security unless you're Denzel?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know how he would answer it. I don't know how much. My guess is he's got a pretty high security level, but doing okay. But I think more often than not for actors, certainly for me, I think back at that time, and I loved all those people and every one of those experiences. But it wasn't like I never, you put everything into a show. You do the best you possibly can. It gets to that weird. There's only 2 weeks left, and the thing grinds down to an end, and everybody's kind of looking around, crew that you've met, people you love and admire, and there's a sense that the weather's about to change. And when it's over, I'm just genuinely heartbroken because the process, you've kind of built something that is then has to be ended. It's just complete termination. And the idea after it's over that there's some other thing that thing doesn't exist. I don't know what that thing is. There's
Terrifying.
that thing's, I don't know if it's going to come, but even if it does come, I can't even imagine it being anything like this thing that we're doing right now, So it's hard to look down the road, I think.
It's incredibly hard. It takes a lot of faith, a lot of hope, a lot of trust, a lot of internal fortitude. I think it's funny too. Whenever we're ending a job, I feel like I hear crew members talking about their next gig. Some of them leave early, Some of them are like, "Hey, it's my last day. I'm going on to this other thing," and I'm like, "What's the other thing? What is the? do they need like a dumb white guy? What's it looking like?"
Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
Speaking of funny, I touched a second ago. I touched on your work with the Fairley Brothers and Stuck on You. I want to talk about your
Huge.
Yeah, please.
Huge.
But in general, let's take a moment to talk about
None of you have done a movie with a conjoined twin movie. I mean, come on.
I have, it just didn't get distribution.
Oh,
And I
okay.
really don't want to talk about it, Greg. Emil Hirsch and I are both upset about it. I bring this up because earlier I said something introducing him about congruency of his proficiency and excellence in comedy and drama. Not everybody does that. There are some people who have tried to, and it gets really embarrassing and awkward because you're like, maybe stick to the other genre. You are one of these guys who I can very cleanly say, whether I'm hosting this or not, you are one of these guys who, if you showed up in a Shakespeare movie or in a Super Bowl commercial, both make equal sense to me. And I think that's a really kind of cool way that's sort of what I've fashioned my brief career on, is like, can I do a Cobra Kai and do a Blackbird,
Yeah.
So, but I feel like you do that. How intentional is that, as we're about to talk about some of these comedy things you've done? Just luck of the draw, or are there choices made that kind of lean into that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the choices. It's like you're given the choices you're given based upon what you've done and certainly what you're being offered. It's
Right.
not like I created, and I'm always. I am aware of that, and I've been incredibly lucky. I mean, to Blackbird is obviously a different gear than a lot of the other stuff that I've done. So grateful to do it when I was doing it. As you know, we'll talk about that. It was such an incredible experience. And but the idea of then finishing that and going off and doing something entirely 360 is a joy. I mean, it really is. So I don't think it's orchestrated or engineered. I'm not sure that we are given that ability to flip it around, but for some reason I've been lucky enough to get some roles and opportunities on both sides of the coin.
Yeah, I feel like autofocus is you eating really hot chicken wings, and then a year later, Stuck on You is you grabbing a gallon of milk and just chugging it. Like there's such a cool down between the two, I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Also, I'm just hungry, so I'm talking
Right.
culinary metaphors.
Right. I think we're just all digesting the chicken wing and
What
the
the hell
milk
you just
and-
said, Paul.
No. I love it. I just.
You hold your own on truly, these are award-winning comedy shows. It's not like you just show up for a cameo on Frasier as,
We worked
the voice
together
of
on
the dog.
Kimmy Schmidt. How about that?
Kimmy Schmidt, Drunk History, Modern Family, BoJack Horseman, and Friends.
Yeah.
These are amazing shows. I assume Kimmy Schmidt, the threading there was Tina Fey, because you worked with her on Baby Mama, right? Was that it?
I
or was it
worked
something
with
else?
her on Baby Mama. That's right. And so I loved her. She's great and has a little Greek in her, so I could lay some of my exeris ligo elenika, kind of wooed her with my Greek, and then she invited me on to she invited me on to Kimmy Schmidt. So yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
It was great.
And that's where we met, of
yeah,
course.
and I did a couple of those, and it was such a brilliant show. So fun. And our thing was was great. And
Great. It was you, me, Jane Krakowski, and Zachary Quinto.
Yeah.
It was a fun little moment, and you have this bit where he's playing a version of himself in the show, and he's talking about his opportunities he's getting because of his new agent, played by Zach, and he's like, I did the voice of the breadbasket in the Nom Nom movies, and next up, Broadway, I could do stomp, stompity stomp, and he just starts like hitting stuff. But like, it's a good example of how, the same way he's really going for it in As Good as It Gets in autofocus, I do feel like you seize the day with the comedy stuff, which is what I love to do. You know? It's fun.
It is.
It's fun to jump into it.
Love when they call. Just make a note.
Making a note. Of course, two of your bigger comedic performances that you were the co-lead of are Stuck on You opposite Matt Damon for the Farrelly Brothers, and Little Miss Sunshine opposite a whole host of brilliant people. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I love both films for different and similar reasons. Stuck on You, I remember seeing with my buddies in theaters. That was a movie where we all saw the trailer and we're like, dude, this looks hilarious. And then we all go, and it's like a fun underdog story.
Yeah.
And you get to work with Meryl effing Streep. Talk to me about that movie.
Yeah. So, my friend Bradley Thomas, who should be here
give this guy a round of applause.
How about Bradley Thomas? Produced actually Blackbird as well, so we've got to
great producer, even
that.
better human.
But I guess Stuck on You was a just right. It was a very Peter and Bobby Farrelly thing that only they could hatch, which was the story of Bob and Walt Tenner, who are conjoined twins. And one has great dreams and aspirations for show business, and the other's partially agoraphobic, and that's kind of the premise. And they were great to work with. Everybody has said this and commented on this. It's the greatest party in town. Matt and I walk in, and we, first time we met, we're talking to him, and Pete's like, we're talking, Bobby's throwing out ideas, and we're just wrapping the day up, and I think Matt says, hey, how are we going to be stuck together? And you just see their faces drop and go like, yeah, how are we going to get them together?
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know, they came up with some sort of Velcro, thing where, suddenly we were, kind of partially, I did seriously damage my back permanently on that. So,
oh, dead serious?
I'm not trying to bring the room down, but yeah, I definitely,
Oh my God.
well, I had my spine like this with Matt connected next to me for like 4 months.
And you did that fight scene too.
Yeah,
That
we
didn't
did
look very
fight
cozy.
scenes, and by the way, when you need to go to the bathroom and you're connected, think about it. I mean, there's problems that arise from this. So I think it's a reason that they're not doing these kinds of films anymore. It makes perfect sense.
No, nowadays it'd be somebody at Pinewood Studios with a green screen, and they'd be urinating alone 12 times a day.
No, it's true.
Pure freedom.
There was not one green screen effect in it. It was all us. And then there was a process, I think, where you see us, in our bathing suits, where they finally, the money shot. And for that, we did like this latex, thing where it took, I think, 4 hours, 6 hours together standing there. And I think it was our early introduction to PlayStation.
Was Meryl Streep pretty cool? Was that like a cool actor moment to just be like, I'm
and
looking at the call sheet.
Yeah.
And Meryl's next to me. Like, I feel like you'd just break into songs.
And I actually do sing a song. It's the only time I ever recorded. I recorded Billy Stewart's. Billy Stewart?
Billy Ray Cyrus?
No, not
I know,
Billy Ray
I'm just
Cyrus.
kidding.
I recorded Summertime, and it's part of this final song that we do at the end. That song, just a little side note, did get sampled by Rihanna. So if you're listening to Suck My Cockiness, Lick My Persuasion,
Is that a real song?
You will hear a little sampling of a partial piece of my singing "Summertime," and it's in the Rihanna song. So that's a true story. So we haven't brought it out on the road yet. We haven't done that, but people are talking.
Because you're too busy.
Greg Rowe, people are talking about us. We'll see what happens.
That title, God, the Illuminati is so creative.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Little Miss Sunshine is literally in probably my top 10 favorite films of all time.
Wow.
That movie just
Not
took me by
top 5 though, huh?
Sorry, you're competing with Dazed and Confused.
Yeah,
you're
that's
competing
true.
with
It's
a lot of things. It's a Wonderful Life.
Honored to be in the top 10.
No, I really do. I mean, I rewatched the film with my wife last night, who had never seen it, and it's just one of those films that it makes you laugh and cry. I care about everybody in the movie, all the characters, and of course, you get to work with the likes of Toni Collette, who you worked with twice, Alan Arkin, who's a legend, Steve Carell, who was just having that moment after Anchorman, and 40-Year-Old Virgin, Paul Dano, who's now like one of our finest actors alive.
Sure.
That cast and Abigail Breslin, it was just like really, they're all so good. And you told me in the past, and this is what I stopped myself on, was you told me, you said, back when that was happening and they were sending you the script, you were kind of like, it's good, but like, I don't know if this is ever going to get made. I don't know about this movie. Like, you were not 100% on that film.
It's totally true. I didn't, first of all, until we did a 2-week rehearsal process that was incredible. Remember rehearsals? We did this incredible rehearsal process that was for everyone to meet each other and get to know each other and create a family dynamic. It was incredible, and I'll never forget it. And was so appreciative of Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris for championing that. They were like, this has to happen, and we did all sorts of crazy stuff. We would take that little crazy tin yellow can of a bus and drive over and go bowling in the afternoon. Ooh. We would keep diaries of each other. It was the most silly acting school stuff imaginable for that movie.
Look at the movie.
It really did, but that was all after the fact. When I first, Michael Arndt's script's fantastic. Of course, it ended up I think it won the award that year. And it was good, but I just remember reading it and I thought it was really good, but being honest, I just didn't understand how much was in that and I think part of that, was born out of this process and certainly was born out of, ultimately how it was, directed and how they told the story.
Yeah.
But so it didn't, but I was still, I was interested in it. It also had a lot of stops and starts. We were doing it, then we weren't doing it, then the financing fell through. Meanwhile, everybody's kind of like, well, how old's Abigail now? I mean, because she was, Olive was supposed to be, I think 8, and we're just thinking, my God, she turns into a teenager. We don't have a movie anymore here. Mm-hmm. So time was going by, and finally, our producer, ended up just famously writing a check to make the movie. But yeah, it was a great experience. Love all those people. One of the great, it's always odd, films are kind of quiet. You working with, it's an insular experience.
Very much so.
And to actually have a joyous end of the, conclusion of the movie experience doesn't really happen. Yeah, maybe there's a premiere and there's a party and stuff, but for something really special to happen, I don't know. A lot of things have to come together. We're at Sundance. We've done some press for a couple of days, and the movie's playing the next night at the Eccles, and Carell says to me, "Do you ski?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm all right." And he goes, "Me too. Should we ski?" And so we do. We go out on the day of the screening. Me and Steve Carell skiing around like ski bums, have an epic day. We get to the theater, we see the gang, we're having a wonderful hello, and all of a sudden the oxygen in the room changes, and Alan Arkin looks over my shoulder and he goes, "Hello, Bob." Turn around, it's Redford. And I'm like, this can't get any better. And Bob says hello to all of us, of course, and Bob, like I'm calling him Bob.
Tony Hopkins was there.
I didn't say anything. I was like, very big fan. Anyway, it was a wonderful, wonderful night. And then, of course, they played the movie, and it blew, the place, the roof went off.
And it lasted for award season too. I remember, I believe it was a late summer release, and it went all the way to the Best Picture.
Yeah.
That was really something else. But once again, I believe, did you say you improvised the line? There's a moment where they're talking about this family that does equestrian stuff. And he has a line that is one of my favorite lines of the film. He says, "They do that horse shit every year."
Yeah.
I laughed so hard.
Yeah.
Did you really improvise that?
Yeah, that line was they do that horse shit I think it's every single week, isn't it?
Something, yeah.
Doesn't
Something like that.
sound
Every
like
weekend, yeah.
Oh, okay, something like that.
Oh,
anyway,
man.
yeah. Kind of stole the attitude of it. A friend of mine, Scott Crouch, he actually, I don't know, he talks like that. And I was always like, when that moment came in, it just kind of felt like I don't know, pulled it from a friend of mine.
It reminds me of Michael Keaton does that. I heard that Keaton will take people from his life or his childhood and just infuse them into something. And I think it's fun doing that. Yeah.
Should I do my Michael Keaton for you?
Do you do a Keaton? Oh, please. It's already good.
All right. My life's really complex because I'm Batman. By the way, I am such a Michael Keaton fan. Back in the early days when I was a guy with a microphone, just had gotten off the bus here in LA, I went to the premiere of the original Batman trying to get interviews. And Mr. Nicholson, that was my first introduction with Jack, and Michael and all those guys. And somehow I managed to sneak in the back door and watch that movie, which was transformative. His performance was transformative, the way that he changed everything that night. But anyway, big fan.
Man alive, you remind me of him. And the eye, I've never seen an impression where the eyes you're already transformed from the eyes. That's just not even, I didn't even know that was a thing. Good Lord. Good Lord. Mr. Humble over here, though. You can't compliment him too long, he'll get annoyed. Switching to more recent films, you've done a lot of these inspirational dramas that I don't know that they shoot up the Rotten Tomato meter all the time.
Yeah.
But also, I think
we're getting to a very long portion of the interview now, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I just mean like these are. I think as society has gotten more cynical, clearly, and we certainly have reason to some degree. Films like this kind of don't get honored so much. It's almost like Capricorn, Frank Capra and some of these films of old that were very sweet that wouldn't really survive nowadays. They would be like a faith-based film. I watched for the first time Heaven is for Real, Same Kind of Different as Me, and Brian Banks, of which you're tremendous in all three films. And mind you, for being these kind of touching, sweeter films, the talent you're working opposite again, it's Margot Martindale, Thomas Hayden Church, John Voight, Renee Zellweger again, Jaimin Hunsu, Aldous Hodge. Are you attracted to movies that have some form of redemptive message throughout or in the end, or are these films that people come to you with because of what they deem you to have a certain sensibility, or is it both?
It's certainly none of those three are sought out. I had worked, regarding Heaven is for Real, I'd worked with Randy Wallace on We Were Soldiers,
right.
And we had a relationship and a friendship, and he called me and said, I got this thing. He's doing it with, Joe Roth. They had, I think it was Sony, and they had a story of this book, and it was a mystery. I read it and I thought, this is a mystery. And I thought, Randy's a hell of a filmmaker. And that was it. It wasn't like, it wasn't for any other, agenda. But I did feel like the story, was a powerful story. I mean, the what was happening in that, in that story, whether you're a believer or not a believer, or whether you have any spirituality interest at all, it was interesting that that a father and mother, it was Kelly Riley was in that, and he was a father and mother, being told that their son has seen things that are inconceivable, and that is the premise. And I thought that's a hell of a premise. It was a very well done script.
The idea of a kid knowing things they couldn't possibly know and sharing it with the parents after a near-death experience.
Yeah,
it was really, really neat.
And I never really worked with a kid, it was a little boy, and I hadn't really worked with. I thought that was interesting too. And this kid was Colton. He was probably 6 years old, and he was really tremendous. I mean, it was of course when the camera's not rolling, you're dealing with a 5 or 6 year old kid, and you can imagine all that goes with that.
And then they had craft service, and they eat the candy.
Oh yeah, jacked up, and but between that and then I think the other things also were just scripts that I felt one was about homeless that I did with Renee, same kind of different, and then the Aldous Hodge movie, Brian Banks, that's just an incredible true story.
Unbelievable.
That's an incredible true story about a kid, falsely accused of a crime that he didn't commit. And, Justin Brooks is, to this day, a very good friend of mine, an incredible guy who has, headed up the California Innocence Project and done so much to help get so many wrongly convicted people, overturned, released from prison that didn't do it. He has an incredible legacy. I was honored to be able to play that. And then, working opposite Aldous. I think Aldous is one of the great actors working today, right?
Yeah, for real. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, absolutely. I called Aldous. We had a good conversation. And he said about you, he said, Greg is present. He's always emotionally available. And in an industry where a lot of these big talents come in and they say, this is kind of the me show, make room for me. He said that you were humble and a team player. Yeah. And I really think that's kind of a consistent thing that people say about you. They say that you come in, you do the work, you're a gentleman, you're funny. And I do think that seems like a quality you've kind of had for a while. Do you attribute the kind of aw shucks, humility, sense of humor, let's have some eternal perspective, it's not like we're doing surgery, that vibe, does that inherent in your family? Because the work ethic of some of the folks in your family, it definitely seems like it's kind of about doing the work, making it work with the people around you, and being able to have some levity.
Yeah, I have a great mom, and a great dad. They taught me manners, and I guess I'm very grateful for that. I don't feel like, I don't know what the alternative to that is.
Well, I think we know what the alternative is.
I guess we do.
We hear stories about the alternative.
No, we do know what the alternative is, don't we? Yeah. And I've been lucky because
sounds like a lot of work, the alternative.
It is, but you hear stories, or you hear stories of stories. Look, I'm incredibly fortunate in the sense that people love that question. They're like, "Who's the biggest dick you've worked with?"
Yeah, of course.
And I just honestly don't. I honestly have had, for the most part, are very, very, and I'm grateful for it. A really sort of. I've been free of that experience where it would really, I think it'd be, where if you see somebody actively damaging people or being mean, I don't know how I, deal with it, myself, in terms of seeing it or having to face it. But I also don't think it's probably as prevalent as people outside the business think it is. I think that there is a process to actually becoming an actor where you go through a number of different productions and stuff. And I think if you're not trying to help and be, some people, listen, you're an artist, there is that behavior that that I do think we make some amends for, understandably, but there's a fine line there, and I don't have to work hard to be. I don't think of myself having to work hard to be nice to people, and of course I'm worried as I say that. I'm like, so somebody probably going, "Oh, you weren't very nice to me." I'm sorry, whoever that person is.
I saw your film you directed and starred in, Phil, where Greg gets to play opposite Emily Mortimer, who's another one of our best actors.
I agree.
That film, my favorite film is It's a Wonderful Life. And when I watch Phil, in the opening moments, it's kind of a similar thing of a guy, seems like a good guy, but he's kind of lost his way, and he's thinking about killing himself.
Yeah.
He's right on the edge, literally. As someone, and not to bring it down, but I am a very overshare, vulnerable person, and I look at you as a friend. As someone who's had depression and dark ideation in the past.
Your microphone is
Did it
between
fall?
your legs. If you need
Of
to
course.
put that up here.
It always falls when you're about to say something genuine. Thank you. As someone who's dealt with depression and dark ideation in the past, I thought it was a really important film for folks to see, because the character, of course, goes on this misadventure in which he doesn't make that decision and then kind of pretends to be this other person and forges a relationship with someone under false pretenses.
Right.
But it ends up being his salvation in a way, this relationship and this kind of strangely written chapter. How did that screenplay come to you, and what was it like directing yourself?
Well, Stephen Mazur wrote it, and I thought I just liked the script. I love It's a Wonderful Life as well, and I know that quality you're talking about, and it was something, that I hope to capture, and I'm not sure it's, that I did. I don't think, it wasn't received well. But
who cares about that? You got to make a film. And,
yeah,
and
no,
there
I
are
mean,
people who liked it,
absolutely.
yeah.
But I'm just saying, I'm being transparent, man.
Sure.
But I loved it, and I loved the, we had Bradley Whitford and so many great actors
Wilson,
in it.
Jay Duplass.
Yeah, it was really. Again, I think it was the mystery of the story that kind of captured it was, as you say, as a guy who's going to take his own life, and I had somebody in my life who did, and I maybe it was that kind of triggered my interest in this. But he ultimately he meets a guy who has everything. He sees a guy who has everything in Emily Mortimer's husband, and he actually does take his own life.
Played by Whitford.
And it's so devastating. So at that point, it becomes a mystery of, well, if there's no hope for him, there's no hope for me. And I do think that people look at the world that way. It's like, well, where's my place? If that person's struggling, where is my place? Or conversely, if that person's, doing this, maybe I can have that. It's a human condition to try and follow these threads. And I kind of like that idea. And ultimately, it is, as a guy, as you say, he takes on a false identity to try to find out what happened.
I also found interesting as an actor, I wonder if it's conscious or unconscious, this idea of taking on a role, taking on a new identity to feel okay about life. Because I'll be honest, in my weaker moments, I've had times where I go, I think I'm a really good actor, but maybe not good at being a person. Mm-hmm. And there's just something, I just found there'd be something thematically interesting about that.
Yeah, and I felt like I think that's true, and I think that that life affirming thing that's kind of there, kind of in the mist, was this thing that I was searching for. I will say this: I directed it, and I am in it as well, and I just have such incredible respect for anybody who has done that and done it really successfully. And obviously there are stories of people who've had made these giant movies where they're in it and they're directing, and I just have it's a crazy thing. Doc Rivers, a friend of mine, coach Philadelphia, and he said to me one time, he goes, Greg, I was telling him I was doing this movie. He goes, there's a reason I'm on the bench while the guys are playing basketball. You understand that, right? And I was like, oh yeah. So I definitely, for me, I think being on either the field or on the bench makes more sense, but because it's a hell of a lot. Little warning, I've caught a little cautionary tale there, ladies and gentlemen, in case you're thinking about it.
It's a lot, but I admire that you explored that kind of a story.
You've talked about directing too.
I really want to. I won't spill any tea now, but there's someone I'm speaking with about making something very low budget where you can kind of make it homegrown and do it at a tiny price point and then just kind of push it out. And I almost feel like it's a safety net, like you won't be judged as much. You're not wasting somebody's millions of dollars, which is terrifying. Yeah. Which brings us to most recently, you are bouncing between these two shows. I watched the first 3 episodes of Shining Vale, in which you play opposite Courtney Cox. What a fun show! It took me a minute to really take hold of the tone. It's almost got like an Edgar Wright vibe to it or something, where I'm really, really concerned about the characters, and then I'm laughing hysterically. Particularly, there's a scene in which you're trying to steal an espresso machine from this guy's kitchen, the guy who's been romantically entangled with your wife, played by Courtney. It was one of my favorite scenes, and that's fun too because I've watched you for years. It's one of like my 5 favorite scenes I've ever seen you do in anything.
Oh, thank you.
And it's this fun thing where you're very good at playing these sort of emasculated everymen.
You're welcome.
But you do, well, listen, I'm very good at playing unhealthy whack jobs, so what does that say about me? But you really are tremendous at it. And then in Blackbird, you get to kind of pivot, and you're playing Brian, why am I forgetting his last name?
Brian Miller.
Thank you, Brian Miller. Yeah. You're playing this kind of more virtuous, put together guy who has a military background and is now, on the hunt for Larry Hall, played by me. And if you haven't seen it yet, and there's a lot of television, I get it. It's only 6 episodes. And I'm telling you, Greg's work in the show is as good as literally anyone in the show, from the cinematographer to Taryn and Ray and myself. I can't get over how you are kind of the moral pillar of a show full of flawed people. And you bring so much strength in an everyday man versus some of these other guys who have kind of dropped the ball, like an Autofocus or Shining Vale to some degree. How has it been getting to play in those two worlds and kind of play the sort of masculine, emboldened character and the sort of emasculated, clumsy guy?
Fantastic. I mean, it kind of circles back to what we talked about at the beginning. I mean, it was just really an absolute joy to have, and I think that the world of streaming does kind of offer that right now, that you can dive into. I mean, movies too, but I did Blackbird. Literally was butted right up again. I mean, this is a very, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a very dark show, and that's nice of you to say. I mean, Paul Walter Hauser's performance is knockout. So we can talk a little Greg Kinnear because it's my retrospective, but this is the money, and it is jaw-dropping, and truly one of the great performances I think ever captured. It's incredible. So enough. What are we doing? We love each other. Yeah,
we do love each other. The idea of getting to do those two worlds.
Yeah, so we did that, and it's it's dealing. I have daughters and children, and this idea of this murder that has taken place. A number of murders have taken place, and it's a serial killer story at the through and through, and it's pretty Dennis Lehane. It's pretty dark and it's pretty rough, but it's so incredibly told, and not graphically. Remarkably, it's not graphically told in any way. It's all what you don't see. It's really about the integrity of the performances across the board, and Taron and Ray, Liotta in his last TV thing. I mean, it was amazing. So, getting to work with all those people and in a very close environment with a great group of people, all giving everything we could to this thing, and then to go pivot after that and go into just a crazy haunted house wackadoo show with Courtney and Mira Sorvino and all these people was it really, I've never had something kind of like a switch like that. I don't think ever, and it was exactly what I needed, and a great turn, just kind of to be able to go from one to the other. I was very fortunate for that.
Chicken wings and milk, my friend.
Chicken wings and milk. I think I've got a book title, ladies and gentlemen.
Chicken wings and milk. I don't know how he does it. This is you going like that. I love those covers. We got some questions from the audience. I want to rifle through some of these. Question from Lynn. She says, Greg, you so often portray characters who are so perfectly imperfect, ultimately good guys. Have you ever played an evil man? In what?
Evil man. Well, Captain Amazing was a bit of a prick, but I wouldn't call him evil.
Mystery Men.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't know that I have. Have I? Huh? Oh, House of Cards. He wasn't very nice, was he?
Nicer than the other one.
I thought my wife, Diane Lane, was so much meaner than me. I was like, well, at least I'm not as bad as her. Wow, she is tough. Yeah, but that was interesting to be able to do that show, and it was at a crazy time because the Kevin thing had just happened, and it was that's a whole nother story. We don't have enough time left on this interview to cover how
but you
that
do
went
a very good Kevin Spacey impression.
Yes, I do.
You do. We're not going to do it, but he does do it. Rob says, "Yo, Greg,
yo,
bro." I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say yo.
Oh.
What's something you took away and learned from Jack Nicholson, working with him on As Good as It Gets? Anything you picked up?
Yeah, I think just the absolute, I don't know. Maybe I didn't. It's too hard of a question.
That's okay.
It's late. I don't know. He's fucking great. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Which actor? Oh, one moment. This is from Mark. Which actors have inspired you? Which is a good question to end on for these. Though I have a little James Lipton thing to end off here. Mark says, who's inspired you? And you bringing it back to Blackbird. You and Ray Liotta are those guys for me. There's a crop of guys, and when I watch As Good as It Gets and Little Miss Sunshine, when I watch Ray and Field of Dreams and Goodfellas and stuff, that inspires me. So this is a treat for me to get to ask you that. Who inspires you, man?
Well, you said one. I mean, Dennis has talked about he saw Ray in Something Wild, and the moment, and for me, that was same for me. It was like that was transformative. I was like, my God, I didn't think you could literally jump off of the screen like that. He was certainly, is up there. So I just want to mention that. Denzel, obviously, you mentioned him earlier. I mean, never seen him not be anything other than great. I don't know. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony, sorry.
Tony.
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 Tony. Never worked with him. I don't know. I mean, I feel like the list is long and voluminous, but I guess those are a few that are, jump off the... And that's ones that I haven't worked with. I've worked with a lot of the ones that I would put right on that list, but for sure, yeah.
Well, James Lipton does the questions, or did these Brilliant questions from Bernard Pivot.
Oh, wow. You're
So
going to
I-
now play the part
I
of
have-
James Lipton,
We're
ladies
going to
and
rifle
gentlemen.
through
That's-
these. These are not essay answers. These are just kind of, quick ones. I made up a character named Robust Swivel instead of Bernard Pivot.
Robust swivel, ladies and gentlemen,
Robust
is in the
Swivel.
house.
Well, Swivel. Robust Swivel. What is your favorite sandwich?
Tuna salad with a lot of lettuce, extra lettuce. And by the way, if you ever order that, they'll bring lettuce on it, but they'll never put enough lettuce on it. So there's no, tell them triple lettuce, quadruple lettuce. But
You're not going to say the bread, man?
that's on whole wheat.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so-
What is your least favorite song? You hear it and you're just
Fly, Robin, fly. Up to the sky. It just keeps repeating that
don't hurt
over and
yourself.
over
Don't.
again. So.
What makes you laugh?
My children. Yeah, my children make me laugh.
What makes you want to cry genuinely?
When my wife's mad at me. No, what genuinely makes me cry?
Yeah.
I think when I see, just I guess just a moment of joy, a moment of celebration from somebody who didn't anticipate it. They didn't know that moment was going to happen, and if you're watching and that happens right in front of you, it's incredible.
What a great specific answer. I love that. Who is your celebrity crush at age 16?
16, I don't know, like Linda Blair, I guess.
Linda Blair?
I don't know. I'd seen her, like she was cute when I had seen the
No
Exorcist.
offense to Linda Blair. I'm thinking of a child vomiting and stabbing herself with a crucifix.
I had seen The Exorcist. I had to clean out this theater in Greece. That was part of my job. One of my early jobs that I didn't get fired from was cleaning the Just Mag Theater. And I would clean the theater and somehow I snuck in with my friend David Martin and we got to watch The Exorcist, even though it was R-rated. And no, I didn't. She was, I guess, a little around this.
Greg, I didn't say an essay answer.
Maybe it was later.
Your answer is Linda Blair.
No, I guess it was later than I saw Linda Blair, and I thought, wow, I saw her like in a magazine or something. I was like, wow, she's kind of cute. I don't know. I know it's a weird thing.
My God.
Listen, I told you we had the Muppets in Dallas on.
I'm
Maybe
sorry,
it was the
but
girl.
had you said Rod Steiger, it would have been less surprising. I'm just letting you know. Which deceased politician do you think was a fucking idiot? Deceased. It's okay. No blowback. They're dead.
I don't know. I don't.
Okay.
I'm pass.
I'm gonna go Robert McNamara.
Yeah. Okay.
For those
fine.
who don't
I'm
know
with
why,
you. Yeah.
Research the Vietnam War. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Yeah. Too many to answer.
image.
Favorite childhood image was. What do you mean, my favorite childhood image?
Oh, like just something fun. You're at a carnival and you had your first cotton candy and the sky's blue. Whatever.
I guess my favorite or my first.
Just pick a favorite.
I graduated high school in Greece, and it was we had a lovely prom, and I remember all of us, a very close group of us, going up to the Acropolis. When you could walk right up to the Acropolis, there was no gate around it, nobody taking any drachma from you. You go right up the Acropolis and sitting there and watching the sunrise. I was very lucky.
If I knew what the Acropolis was, I bet I'd be very impressed. Who would you? That's a demerit on my part. I apologize. I'm sorry. We also didn't talk about robots. I mean, there's a lot of mishaps in this interview. Who would you like to meet who you have never met? Who is still alive, obviously.
Oh God, I'm so bad at this kind of thing. I knew you were going to do this, Paul.
Just say Jane Seymour and we can move on.
I mean, who would you go with, Reed? See, my friends are like me. They don't have great answers either.
I'd say Bradley, who you got, but I feel like he's met everybody.
Yeah.
All right, we'll pass.
I feel like I need more time to prep that. I'm afraid, like, I genuinely don't want to give you an answer and be like, drive home and be like, God, why did I give him that answer? I should have given him this answer. What's the next one? I will take a pass.
What is a book you find yourself recommending to people?
Biography on Roosevelt.
Wait, which Roosevelt?
The Teddy.
Theo.
Yes. Strange.
Interesting guy.
Yeah.
Became very masculine in a time of emotional pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally another kind of book, completely contemporary, is Blink.
Classic.
Yeah.
Modern classic. And lastly, I believe James Lipton used to say, if heaven exists, what do you want to hear God say at the pearly gates? So I'm going to change that up and say, if heaven exists, which it does, I believe. If heaven exists, what would you like to shout at Satan while Christ pours you a glass of red wine? You're up partying, and Jesus is like, yo, get in on this wine that tastes better than Mondavi, baby.
Right.
What are you shouting at Satan from heaven?
I want out of here.
You want out of here?
No, I'm sorry. Can you ask
you meant this interview.
Yeah, I meant the interview, but let me ask the question one more time. Well, it's not even here. You're making these up.
No, it's written at the very bottom. If heaven exists...
This is like the rantings of a madman, for God's sakes. No wonder.
Listen, I thought I was interviewing Barry Pepper tonight. This
You got
is
the
not
wrong
the way
guy. Yeah. So
what's your victory cry while you're drinking wine in heaven with your loved ones? What do you say?
That was fantastic. I say thank you, Paul Walter Hauser.
Yo, thanks, bud. Before we go.
Oh yeah.
I have a little takeaway for some of the folks who've attended tonight. What size shirt are you, Greg?
I'm a large, medium, or large, but you don't have to give me one, do you?
Well, yeah.
Are these Blackbird shirts?
No,
or
these
are
aren't Blackbird
Oh,
shirts.
they're Paul Walter Hauser shirts.
This isn't Blackbird night. This is Greg Kinnear night. Here's a large. I got these made especially for you and the folks here.
Oh my God.
They say...
Who's not going to request to be interviewed by this guy?
They say Greg Borrow and Steele. And I just want to present this to you. I also have a cake. Stay around for some cake. But I just wanted to say you are not only one of my favorite actors, you are very clearly and obviously a favorite actor of the folks here tonight. Thank you.